Hey everybody, today I'm going to review DEWALT's brand new DCS361 20 volt cordless 7 1/4 inch sliding compound miter saw. Now what I'm actually going to do in this video is go over the different features that they have built into it, and we're going to do extensive testing. What I'm actually going to be showing you are cut capacities, really cut quality, as well as runtime testing, so you'll be able to see the amount of work you're going to be able to get done on just one battery charge. Now they do offer this with a couple different configurations. If you're already part of the 20 volt max lineup, you can get it as just a bare tool, and that's not going to include a battery or a charger, and that's around $319. But if you're new to DEWALT, or you just want an additional battery and an additional charger, if you get one of the kits, it's going to come with all of that, and the battery that it actually comes with is their high capacity 4 amp hour battery pack. So that's the battery I'll be doing the runtime testing with today. I'm not going to use one of their higher capacity packs such as the 5 amp hour one. So what I want to do next is show you the different features that they have built into this, and then we're going to see how it actually performs. Here's a closer look at the saw, and the first thing I want to point out is the fact that they do give you a couple different ways to mount this. Now what I'll be doing is mounting this to a portable miter saw workstation using carriage bolts, and I'll be using a set of square holes that they have built into the base. That's going to catch the square part of the carriage bolt, it's going to prevent it from turning, and I can tighten everything up. Now let's say you want to permanently mount this to a workbench, maybe affix it to a deck if you're building a deck, or even screw it to some sawhorses. They have some round holes that are countersunk, so when you run a drywall screw or an exterior grade screw down through that, it's going to be flush with the level of the saw. Now what I'm going to do now is go ahead, mount that to the miter saw workstation. That way we can go all the way around it with the camera and none of the features are going to be left out. Because this is part of their 20 volt max lineup, it uses the standard 20 volt max slide rail system batteries. And you can see the battery is going to slide right on the rear of the unit. You can press it in place, and when you hear the click, it's energized and ready to go. Now there is two other things you need to release prior to using this. The lockdown pin directly behind the battery, you can see that is silver. We can pull that out, then it will release the saw. And you're also going to want to loosen up the rail lock knob. So right here is a black knob on top of the rail housing. Just turn that counterclockwise, then it will also be released. To set the angle of the cut up to 48 degrees in the left or right position, what you first want to do is go ahead and take this lever on the front, pull up on that, and that's going to release the lock. Now this button directly in front of the lever, you'll press that down. You can move it left or right, like I said, up to 48 degrees. And they do have positive stops at all the normal locations. Now if you have a weird angle that you're dealing with, you can easily see the mark, line it right up, and then lock everything down. So the nice thing is, let's say you're right about 45 degrees but not right on it. You can release the button, just press over. When it gets to 45 degrees, it's automatically going to pop down in the detent. And the last step you want to do before you actually make a cut is just press down on this to lock everything in place. To set the bevel of your cut, right here on the back of the housing, you can see a large black knob. We'll just go ahead and loosen that up. Now we can set the correct angle of the bevel we want to cut. So let's say we want to cut 30 degrees. We're going to line it up with the 30 degrees mark right here. Go ahead, tighten this back down. Everything's going to be locked into place, and now we can make that sliding bevel cut. Now if you don't want to make a sliding bevel cut, then just move the slide all the way to the rear position. Go ahead and lock the slide lock down. Now you would have just a chop saw action. So just depending on the size material you're working with, you'll want to have one of those two options. If you're dealing with really just 2x4s with cross cutting, you wouldn't need to use the slide. But if you're using a larger cut, like a cross cutting a 2x8, then you would need to utilize that. So you just need to fine tune it for your situation, but all the adjustments on this saw are very easy to do. The knobs are very large, and everything does really release and tighten up very quickly. Now as far as making a very quick, clean, accurate cut, you can see the line I marked across the face of this 2x4. Now normally with a miter saw that even has a laser built in, a lot of times unless you make sure that that laser is aligned, it really just gives you a rough estimate as to where you're going to cut, but it's never exact. So what I want to point out now is the XPS lighting system that casts light on both sides of the blade, and it creates a shadow exactly where the cut line is going to be. So what I mean by that, we'll go ahead and just lower the blade down. The light has not been activated, so you can see we would just have to eyeball this at this point. But if we just activate the light by pressing it on the button, Now you can see the little shadow. And you can see there are two different shades of light there. We'll go ahead and just line that up with the mark we made. Pull the trigger. And it went directly through the line that I had marked on the board. Now let's say you need to cut a piece of material but you don't want to get your hand anywhere near the blade. They do have the little clamp right here. It'll swing right around. You just tighten the knob down, holding it in place. Screw this side down. That's going to wedge it down against the board. Now at this point everything's going to be locked in place. We can safely make a cut and have our hands nowhere in the way. Now for carrying this out to your workshop or maybe out to your truck to go to a job site, they do have a couple of different options depending on what's most comfortable to you. Now I would suggest always removing the battery pack so you don't accidentally cut this on and carry this separately. But if you are comfortable enough, you can leave this on the saw as long as you do take note of not pulling the trigger. So in this case, I want to point out also the fact that I do have the miter saw stand brackets installed on the bottom of the saw. That's not standard, and whether you use this miter saw stand or a different one, the brackets may be a little different and it may affect the way you need to carry this around. Now on the top of it is a big black handle. You can see we can just lift it directly up with that to move it from one workbench to the other. Or if you want to carry it on your side, you can see it does hang down nice and tight right against your side. You carry it much like a suitcase. Now this does only weigh a little over 30 pounds, so it's not a lot of weight by any means. And if you do get tired with one hand, you can easily just flip it around and carry it the opposite direction. Now one thing I've noticed after making cuts with this and then moving it around is the fact that the dust bag does do an excellent job at collecting dust. But when you move it around, it goes right back down the little chute and it's going to fall out the bottom around the blade. So it could get you very dirty, your shop very dirty, or your truck very dirty. Before you move this anywhere, always just grab the dust bag, pull it off of there and empty it. That way you don't cover yourself with sawdust. Now another option with this port, other than using the included dust bag, is to use a shop vac or a dust extractor. You can plug that right in, turn the shop vac on, and then that's going to suck up all the dust and make your cuts much cleaner. Now because this is a sliding compound miter saw, although it is a 7 1/4 inch blade, it still has a cut capacity that can cross cut a 2x8. It can cut nested crown up to 3 5/8 by 9/16. And 3 1/2 inch tall base vertically against the fence. Now let's say you build decks. It's not only going to cross-cut 5/4 board, but you can also do 45s. So I'll pop this over on 45 and go ahead and cut it the same way. Okay, I just hooked up a vacuum cleaner as well as a dust separator to the saw rather than using the included dust bag because now we're going to do a runtime test. I have a fully charged 4 Ah battery pack as well as a brand new 24-tooth Diablo saw blade installed, and we're going to see how many cuts we can get through a standard 2x4 on just one charge. ...202 cuts through a 2x4 on just one battery charge. So now you've seen DEWALT's brand new DCS361 7¼ inch sliding compound miter saw for yourself. And really, if you think about it, this is going to use very cheap or inexpensive circular saw blades. You're still going to be able to get a lot of work done, and it does have that massive cut capacity up to a 2x8. Now with the crown molding, it does have nested crown up to 3 5/8, and I showed you how easy it could cut that. And then also with the runtime test, we were able to get over 200 cuts, which was more than DEWALT got in their runtime testing through a standard 2x4. Now I do want to point out that I went non-stop with the runtime testing. The only time I stopped was to move some cameras around. But I did not give this any time to cool off, and it never overheated on me one time. The other really nice thing that I found out during the runtime testing was when it gets down to the last little bit of power, and I did count it, when it got down to the last 7 cuts, the light would actually start blinking. So that gives you a little warning. It's not just going to die on you on your last cut or maybe your second to last cut. So just keep that in mind. If the light ever does start blinking, that means that the battery is almost dead. Now, I really like the fact that this does not have a laser. It actually has their specialized lighting system, and that's going to show you an exact line of where you're going to cut. It's very unique to DEWALT, and I really like that feature. The other thing I do want to point out is the fact that this is so portable. So if you are a trim carpenter, a finish carpenter, or maybe even a framer, or even somebody that builds decks, this should be able to get the job done for you and really should take care of almost all the cuts that you need to do. And you're not going to have to haul out a bigger 10 or 12 inch sliding compound miter saw to get the job done. Now this does carry a 3-year warranty from DEWALT against defects. So if you ever do have a problem with it, they will fix that for you free of charge. If you like this video, please click like. If you like my channel, please click subscribe. And thanks for watching.